Doesn't just push back the sin. name above all names, page 105. We're going to sing this one through a couple of times.
Nahum chapter 1 is where we will be. We are glad that you are with us today. Alexis is going to do nursery for those that want to go on out. If you want to go to that, you can. If you're an adult, you need to stay in here. You cannot go play in the nursery. All right? So, children's, no, huh? Oh, children's church. I am sorry. Children's church. Alexis is taking them to children's church, not the nursery. That could get kind of crazy. So we are glad you're with us today. Don't forget that we had our giving station in the back. We had it again at the end, I think. Jared risked his life for the financial stability of the church by doing that, so we appreciate that. We know this has been a crazy week or so. We've done our best to communicate to you Again, the best way for us to communicate is through our website and the band app. If you've not done that, let us know. We will be taking steps this week to put in place the text messages and emails for those that want that as well. But please do the best you can to make sure that you get the band out. We need to be in prayer for everything, but also this week, we're very fortunate here that we have, some people in the medical field, Bethany, Joe Bethany's Sonny, and we've been relying on them a lot to give us some advice and everything. But we also need to be in prayer for them as well. I mean, they're on the front lines of this. And so we need to be praying for them this week, and that all of this can pass soon, and we're hoping that it does. So let's go to the Lord in prayer, and for all of our loved ones that's not with us today, they're watching on Facebook or wherever we got it at. We love you and we miss you, and hopefully this will calm down and we'll be back to normal soon. I will tell you now that a lot of states, the governors have asked them not to have service. Our governor has not asked that yet. So, Lord, you know our hearts. Your word teaches us that you do not give us the spirit of fear, but yet it is present in our community, in our nation. So we ask you, Father, that you just give us the spirit of calmness. Lord, we know that those that are saved, that we have the Holy Spirit. Lord, we ask you that the Holy Spirit will work in our lives during this time. Lord, we have some members of our church that are on the front line of this. They're working. Some are even working today. And we ask you that you keep them safe and be with their families as they go through this as well. We ask you, Father, that you be with us today as we go into your word, that you would have your way and will. In your holy name that we ask all of this, because it's in you that we know that we have peace and comfort. It's your holy name that we pray. Amen. I will tell you before I get in our message, there is lessons that you can even learn through this. I have to admit that my wife does not like to send me grocery shopping. I never come back with what she sends me for, but I come back with good stuff. Honey buns, we're stacked up for this pandemic on honey buns, So you might not find toilet paper, but if you need honey buns, I got you good. Well, the other day, when this hit, everybody had to go buy toilet paper. If you didn't need it, you still had to go buy it because everybody else was buying it. And I was close to an Aldi, so I tried to stop at Aldi's. I've never shopped at Aldi's. My wife is, part of the Aldi's cult. She has to go. And I've never been. How many of you knew about this quarter racket on the? Okay. So I'm walking through the parking lot, and the lady asked me if I want her buggy. I thought she just didn't want to push it back up. So I said, sure. So she asked me for a quarter. I'm not going through the whole story, but we about got in a fist fight in the parking lot because I thought she was trying to shake me down for a quarter. So, come to find out, that is a real thing. So I didn't take her buggy, but I did decide to try that when I got up front. I put my quarter in, but they added to it. I can't figure out the thing you do to get your quarter back out. So I donated a quarter to the Aldi Disaster Relief Fund because I couldn't get it back. That doesn't work at Publix. I tried that yesterday, and nobody would give me a quarter for my buggy. But yeah, she wanted me to give her a quarter. I'm not giving you a quarter. There's a whole racket up there. So even in times of trouble, you can learn some lessons in this. And that's kind of where we are today is how can we learn lessons in these storms that we go through? How can we learn from things? obviously this morning, I think that as I got up this morning, I thought, in my life, I have never, I'm 40, none of your business, I have never experienced anything like this. And Danny's shaking his head back there. Danny, can you agree with that?
Never saw anything like it ever.
Going to the grocery store yesterday, obviously the toilet paper aisle is completely bare. I don't understand it. The bean aisle is full, but the toilet paper aisle, those two should go together, but they don't. The meat aisle is completely bare. There was a line standing by the meat, and I just got in it. And they would bring meat out and put it in, and people would just grab it. I brought meat home. Angela can verify this. I don't even know what it is, correct? Because I was next in line. We are living in times that I don't think anybody has ever thought would happen. But I think all of us have learned something, right? We will be a little better prepared the next time, I think. Probably not, but we should. But there's lessons that we should learn from storms. And I believe there's lessons from this from a spiritual standpoint that you and I can learn today. Remember a couple of weeks ago that God laid on the heart to break, and we preached on Philippians 4:13. I think now, not that I am the only person that God gave that to, but now I think I understand why God gave that to me. Because I believe that I know that I can endure this because of the promises that He gives us. But there's some lessons that we can learn in Nahum chapter 1, verse 3. We're going to read one verse this morning. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not have all acquitted, that the wicked of the Lord hath his way with whirlwind and the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. The thought that I've had this week is the storm still must answer to God. The storm must answer to God. This is a minor prophet, not that the message that Nahum had was minor, but it was in a minor space. In other words, Nahum was a good preacher. He gave a lot of information in a small amount. A lot of preachers should understand that, correct? Are you thinking of me this morning? But this verse here in Nahum is a verse that you and I should look at and we should apply to our life. It is a very important verse. I want us to start out understanding something about this storm in a very unique word that's in this passage. It is the word acquit. When we think of the word acquit, it goes to our mind today of a criminal trial. It means that you have been accused of something, you've gone to trial, all the evidence have been given, and you have been found not guilty, you've been acquitted, and therefore you get to go free. Notice what God's Word says in verse 3. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. This morning, do you know who is wicked? You and I. Now, we can be saved, we can be redeemed, we can be justified, we can be sanctified, but we all have a sinful nature. We all have to pay the penalty for sin. In other words, we all have to go through this thing called life together. And the reason that we have to go through that is because God is not going to wipe away the penalty of sin completely until we are in heaven. This means that we still must go through storms in our life. Recently, and a lot this week, we have been asked the question, and the question has been asked this morning a lot: why are we going through this? Why are we going through this storm? Well, this morning we should know the answer to that. That is because of Adam and Eve and what they did. The book of Romans even proves this in Romans chapter 5, where it says, because of sin of one man, that's the job of one man, that sin has entered into the world. Because of what Adam and Eve did, you and I are still feeling the effects of this. Some would say, well, that is not fair. Well, let's look at it from this perspective. This morning, can you agree with me that what Angela and I do has positive and negative effects on Abigail and Easton? If we choose not to use our money wisely or to go out and spend things we shouldn't, could it eventually affect their ability to have food and shelter? On the other side of that, if we do things differently, can it affect them in a positive way? So I think we all can agree that how that Angela and I live our life has a positive and negative effect on our immediate children. I think that we can take that a step further and say that what Angela and I do today can have a positive and negative effect on our grandchildren, on our great-grandchildren. We can change the direction of their life with decisions that we make. You and I today are here, and the reason that we're doing a lot of the things that we're doing today is because of the positive and negative things that people have done well before us. I am here today because of my mamaw, and that is how you say it. It is mamaw. My mamaw, back in the early 20s, decided that she was going to break the chain of the sin in our family, and she got saved, which led her husband to be saved, which led her kids to be saved, which led to me being saved. Can we follow those chains? So therefore, it stands logical that God created the Garden of Eden to be a certain way, to where there would be no sin, no hurt, no harm, and when Adam and Eve broke that, that would follow down through his ancestry. So today we can stand here and say, why are there tornadoes? And why are there disease and sickness and cancer and all these things? We can say logically it is because of what Adam and Eve did. We cannot escape it. So the word here literally to us means that God in his holiness looks at the world and says, I can, but I will not get away from all the effects of what Adam and Eve did yet. So we're going through a storm today because of that. That word acquit is very important. However, there's more to this verse that got my attention this week. I think we all can agree that our community and our nation has been going through, and it is going through a storm right now. Our community, our church, have faced it. In the last couple of weeks, we have faced death. We have faced tornadoes. We have faced bad doctor's visits. Now we're going through this. We are going through a storm. Everybody's going through the storm, and I think we can understand why now. But this verse gives us comfort this morning when it says the Lord has his way in the whirlwind. We can learn some lessons from this. Many are panicking today, but I think that we can find rest in his promises. Let me remind you some things about the events and everything that we're going through. God is still in control. How many of you have had to have meetings this week at your work about this? I am fortunate enough to, and I'm saying fortunate enough because it's Facebook and I don't want anything different. But I'm fortunate enough to be with Craig Baylor, and I were co-chairing this committee at Wells College. And I did not think that it was going to be this big of a deal, but it has been hours and hours and hours of work. Do you know who has not had a meeting this week? Are you ready for this? Do you know who has not had to get a committee together and say, I need you to do this, and I need you to do this? Do you know who has not done that? That is our Father. That is God. This has not caught him off guard. He's not had to bring experts in. He's not had to hold press conferences. He's not had to get back and say, what am I going to do in this situation? Why? Because he is still the Lord of the whirlwind. No matter what you're facing today, he is still the Lord of the whirlwind. You can step out of this pandemic. You can go in your personal life. If you're going through things, he is not having to bring in advisors. He is not having to question different things. He knows what's happening. He is in control. You know, when storms comes, we need to look past the wind and the rain and the noise and the damage, and we need to look closer at the storm. The Lord has his way in the storm stuck out to me this week. Let me give you three things this morning. Number one, we need to see the ruler of the storm. Notice that he says, in the whirlwind and the storm. I looked that up. The whirlwind, it literally means a violent storm that is moving in a large manner. It is what we would consider a hurricane or a tornado. The word storm there means something that quickly comes and goes. It would be a passing shower. In other words, this is what he's telling us. He is the ruler of the mighty storms, and he is the ruler of the small storms. He is the ruler in our life when we're just having a bad day, and he's the ruler in our life when our life completely falls apart. He is the ruler of the storm. It does not matter how big or small he is there. In this verse, the word Lord is used. I love the word Lord here. It is Jehovah, which means self-existent. He is a God that does not matter. He is a God that's still there, no matter how big the storm is. He was there before the storm, and he will be there after the storm. When the storm comes, we need to look at the storm. How many have ever been caught in a storm? I was 21 years old. I was not married yet. I was living, we were getting ready to get married. I was living in an apartment here in Nashville with my friend, and he bought a boat, and he did not know anything about that boat. And you're laughing, Angela. I do not think the story is very funny, but it is a good illustration. He did not know anything about the boat, and I knew less about the boat. And we're out on the lake, and the cloud starts coming, and the storm keeps coming in, and we were having fun, and we thought we had a fast boat, and eventually we could outrun this boat, this storm. We could not outrun the storm. So then we had this really bright idea that we could find one of the islands out in the middle of the lake and just go hide on that island. Do you know what a storm does to a boat when it goes onto an island? That boat goes up on the island. And two people cannot get that boat off the island. Do you know what we realized that happened when that storm come? Is that we didn't know what we were doing, and we tried to outsmart the storm, and we got ourselves into a bigger jam where we had to spend the night on an island. And the next day when they come to get us off that island, they were not very nice to us. You can be called stupid in many ways. But you know that's what happens so many times, is we think that we're smarter than the storm, and we think we can figure things out. Do you know what we need to do? We need to trust the ruler of the storm, the one that's in charge of this. You know, through this whole mess the country's going through the tornadoes and everybody, we're trying to fix everything. Do you know what we need to do? We need to stop and pray. We need to stop and be still and know that he's the Lord and trust him, because he knew this was coming. He is the ruler of the storm. Storms will show us how powerless we are. He is the Lord over the storm. Psalms 107:25 says, "For he commandeth and raiseth the storm wind, which lifteth up the waves thereof." There has never been a storm that God did not know about. And I'm even going to tell you this. This might not be popular, but I'm going to tell you this. Have you ever thought back to storm was coming? Do you know that God allowed the storm to come in Job's life? But notice this, God never asked Job permission to send the storm. I went back through my email. I've never went to see anything in there where God said, you know, Greg, I'm going to send a pandemic and that's going to affect your school and your church, the people you love. Is it okay if I do that? Did anybody get a text from God this week? Do you know there's people today that's panicking, not over the pandemic, but over the loss of money in the stock market? God is not going to ask permission to send the storm. Do you know why? Because He is the ruler of the storm. The ruler of the storm is not going to ask permission. Because I can tell you right now, if He asked our permission, how many of you have said, sure, Lord, I'll take it? No. He does not ask permission. He is the ruler of the Lord. Do you know He's Lord in the storm? I found this week as I was thinking about this, Mark 4:39 says, and He arose and rebuked the wind and said in the sea, peace be still, and the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Do you know before He could calm the storm, guess where He had to be? He had to be in the storm. Mark 4:39. He was in the storm. His disciples, they were there, they was afraid, and He was in the middle of the storm. Aren't you glad this morning that we can find comfort that everything we're going through, He is there with us, and in a minute we're going to find proof that is awesome. He's not only the ruler of the storm, but also there is a road in the storm. Notice here, the Bible says, in this passage it says, the Lord has His way. I looked up that word way this week. It means path or direction. So you know what this verse means that Nahum is telling us? The Lord has made a path in your storm. He's in the middle of it, and you know how we know He's in the middle of it? He's made a path right in that storm to get to you and to I. It means in the middle of the storm there's a highway, there's a path. Let me put it this way. There are times that God will use a storm to walk right in the middle of our lives. Do you know that our church and many other thousands of churches have been praying for a revival in the United States? God could be walking right in the middle of the storm to bring revival. I have loved ones that I prayed for to be saved. I would stock market, I wouldn't care how much money I lose. Listen, I want them to be saved because eternity is forever. Some of us times go through storms. Listen, do you know this church is stronger today because of the storms in the past? Name something that can rock this church. Nothing. Because of the storms in the past that God has walked right in the middle of to get to you. There's a path, there's a road in the storm. Storm gets us our attention. Mark 14:22 says that straightway Jesus constrained His disciples to get in the ship and go before them into the other side while set the multitudes away. Do you know what the word straightway means? It means that Jesus constrained them, made them, forced them to get into the boat. Do you know if you keep following this, in Matthew, in the book of Mark, we've studied it, and in this here, the disciples get in the boat, and you know what happens? The great storm comes and the thing, and all of a sudden, right in the middle of the storm, they think they're going to perish. Looking over the water, what do they see? They see Jesus walking to them. Jesus knew the storm was coming. The word straightway means that Jesus sent them into the storm. But He didn't leave them. Because He's the ruler of the storm, He also has a road in the storm. He walked to them. He went to them to help them. Jesus walks in the middle of our life when storms hit. Right now, with fear coming all over us and everybody's panicking, we can have confidence that He loves us and He's there. But I love this. I've done all of this to get to this point. He's a ruler of the storm. There's a road or a path in our storm. But we also can find reassurance in the storm. Look with me in verse 3 again, the very last part of it. It says the clouds, I want to make sure we get this. And the clouds are the dust of his feet. Let me say that again. The clouds are the dust of his feet. You know, a lot of times we look at clouds, and how many of you remember, I was little, and I used to love the storm coming. How many of you have ever been outside and the leaves turn? You know the storm's coming. There's clouds in the sky, right? Storm is coming. There's clouds. It shows that a storm is coming. When storm cloud starts coming in our life and everything starts coming this way, do you know what this verse says? That is the dust of his feet. It means he is on the way. It means you can be afraid and you can be concerned, but understand this. He is on the way. If he's going to send the storm, he's on his way. In other words, he is not going to send a storm, and he's not going to be there with you. Church, we can have confidence today that no matter what comes our way, he is there. He is not sending us into this storm for us to be by ourselves. This got my attention this week. We should have confidence that he's on his way. I get in trouble at home for this a lot. I get in trouble a lot at home. Y'all just think she's sweet. She's not. But I get in trouble at this a lot. And she asked a question trying to get me in more trouble about lying. Because she can tell. Who tracked in the mud? Well, obviously, Easton and I don't have the same foot. And Easton didn't go outside because he's too busy doing this. So there's mud in the house. Do you know what that mud shows Angela? Number one, she thinks it shows her that I don't care about my feet. It just shows her that I didn't try as hard as I should, really. But you know what that mud shows her, dirt and everything? It shows her where I've been and the direction that I'm going. Because when she sees the mud, guess what she says? Stop. Don't you go in the bedroom. Don't you go in the bathroom. Right? She sees the direction of the mud going that way, and she says, stop. Do you know what this teaches us right here? That when the cloud starts coming, which is the dust of his feet, we see that he's coming, but we also can see the direction that he's coming. And guess where he's coming? Right toward us. He cares about us. This morning, the storms has hit our life in the last couple of weeks. But there's dust in his footprints saying that he's coming. I've also learned something recently. Angela and I went through many hurricanes living in Florida. Anybody ever lived through a hurricane? We still have the picture of me holding Abigail. First hurricane we had, we thought it was cool. Stupid. Abby's little, and I'm holding her outside with her feet fly in the air, you know. We went through several hurricanes when we lived in Florida. And there were some tornadoes down there too, but this was the first tornado that we kind of went through. The devastation from a tornado is unbelievable. I mean, it is unbelievable. The other day, I'm having to go over in that area, and I was driving through where the tornadoes have hit. And I noticed something about some trees. There were some trees that was completely wiped out. But But there were some other trees. And I started noticing that they were bent. But they were not broken. They were just bent, but they were not broken. So this week I got to study that. Do you know what they say is one of the contributing factors? I always thought that had to do more with the trunk of the tree, of them breaking and everything. Do you know what they say is one of the major contributing factors of a tree in a storm breaking or bending? Do you know what it is? It is their root system. If that is true, the trees that were just bent and not broken, it's because of how they were rooted. Do you know what's going to determine in our life if we're going to bend or we're going to break when storms come? It's where we're rooted. It's where we're rooted. If you're rooted in God's Word, or if you're rooted in His presence, if you're rooted in His fellowship with other believers, at the end of the storm, you can look back and say, I bent, but I didn't break. I bent, but I didn't break. Do you know the storm still has to answer to God this morning? Today, we can have confidence in Him because He's the ruler of the storm. The storm did not catch Him off guard. And we can have reassurance in the middle of the storm. Father, we love You. We thank You for everything that You do in our lives. No doubt there are those that are afraid or those that are scared. Lord, we have some of our loved ones today that's among our church that are facing some difficult times. We have those that are sick, Lord, that things are not going well. We ask You, Father, that You continue to be with them. But Lord, we ask You also to help us remind and remember that You're the Lord of the storm. You're the one that is in charge. Lord, we give You the praise today. In the middle of the storm, we're going to give You the praise because we know that it's in You that we're rooted. And Lord, we're going to bend, but our prayer is that we don't break. Lord, we ask that You be with us. In Your name we pray. Amen. As we stand, if God spoke to your heart today, I'd ask you to come. Today's a National Day of Prayer. We're thankful for that. But aren't you glad that we don't have to have a single day call to pray? We can pray any day. So as we sing a song, if you would like to come and pray today, we invite you to come. Mr. Larry. Brother Tim, would you pray for us, please?
Father God, we're so thankful that we can come to you in prayer. We pray for Sister Rita, Brother Larry, and what is on their hearts, Lord, and that you would hear their petition, Lord. We pray for our community. We pray for all those that are hurting, Lord, from this tornado. We pray that you would help them to look to you for the help that they need and the strength and the power that you can give them, Lord. We just are thankful that you are there in the midst of the storm. We pray for all those that are suffering illness and sickness and poor health, Lord. We just pray that you would uplift them, that if it be thy will, Lord, that you would heal them, Lord. We thank you that we have your word to rely upon, the promises that you always keep and never forego, Lord. We ask that you continue to be with us and to strengthen us in these difficult times. And we just thank you for your presence in our lives, Lord. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Really quick, again, we will do our best to communicate this week any changes. Remember what we've done to help ease some of the panic is we're not going to have Wednesday night service for a couple of weeks because that's close contact, small groups, and Sunday school, and then they'll be resuming soon. You know, just watch the news. We'll let everybody know any changes. Also, there was some cash. Now, we're not going to tell you the amount. There was some cash found in the church last week. If you've lost cash and you will let us know that, Miss Norma has it. If nobody claims it, we're just going to put it in the offering.